seed, fish, right? Then we have our low glycemic carbohydrates, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, you know what I mean? Quinoa, sweet potatoes, these starchy foods that do not raise the blood sugar too quickly. These are useful as well, right? And then the list goes on. There's a potential connection for foods that are higher in what's called prebiotic fiber, like asparagus and apple and artichokes. These foods that really facilitate our gut bacteria to be diverse, and those have a potential to reduce the state of inflammation in the body. Those may protect the liver as well. Of course, they're going to protect all the organs on some level, but it's important to note. So those are definitely some of the foods I would keep in mind.
Excellent. So probiotics. Now I see coffee. The coffee is controversial. What I always say, for starters, coffee is one of the most sprayed crops. I'm Colombian. I am a little bit familiar with coffee, right. And so I always tell my audience, or go for organic coffee for starters. But tell me about coffee and the liver.
So the reason I include coffee in this post is actually because, so first of all, coffee is one of the highest foods in antioxidants. It's higher than most foods in terms of its antioxidant content. So that's obviously part of the reason why it's protective. But what I found is that I looked at a report on liver cancer. So liver cancer is not one of the most common cancers. It's one of the top 5 most fatal, though. What I found is coffee intake is strongly linked as a protective mechanism against liver cancer based on the American Institute for Cancer Research. So technically coffee is not directly related to fatty liver. I just included it there because I saw it brought up on a report for liver cancer prevention. So look, it's all observational data. It's not like, go start drinking coffee per se, but there's something there.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with this at all. I would hope you are. I would think you are, not hope. Yeah. What about coffee enemas in relation with like liver? We know that coffee enemas are used in the alternative medicine to treat all types of cancer for the detoxing.
Honestly, personally, that's not a topic I'm familiar with or I've looked into. Perhaps it's something I can look into in the future. It's not something that really comes up. Gotcha. In my line of work or in my line of study. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's just it's not something my clients have discussed. It's not something I encounter on social. So it actually isn't something I've really spent any time thinking about, to be honest.
Okay, not a problem. Well, I figured I would ask, and that's completely understandable. Okay, cool. So let's move to the other question. One of your posts, you had, what are the 5 most prescribed medications? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and why avoiding them to begin with is the best step, and when is it not possible to not take medications? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Like, okay, so the reason I wrote this post is because the most prescribed medications in a population reflect the biggest health issues in the population. Maybe like on some level, obviously, there's obviously a connection, right? So when you see that high cholesterol medication, high blood pressure medication, acid reflux medication, the medication for depression, and then medication for the thyroid are, among the most 5 prescribed medications. That for me is inspiration for people to be aware of nutritional considerations for these conditions. Now, that's not me saying, like, if the doctor told you need this medication, don't listen. That's me saying, okay, just so you know, there's steps you can take to prevent it. And if you're on this medication, there's steps you can take to reduce the amount you need or perhaps get off of it. Now, this occurs on a spectrum, right? Because for cholesterol, for example, I think there's much more potential and acid reflux, let's say as well, there's much more potential to remedy that with diet and get off medication than thyroid, for example. Like if your thyroid levels are way off, as far as I know, you're not going to get off of that by changing your diet. Now, I'm not like, this is my understanding of thyroid. Now, depression as well. Like depression is multifaceted. So obviously there's a nutritional role, but my view in terms of my understanding of the evidence is the nutritional role in depression exists, but it's not as strong as the nutritional role in cholesterol. It's much more clear cut with cholesterol. Like we know if you have soluble fiber, you have your monounsaturated fat, you have your legumes, your cholesterol is very likely going to come down. Now, we can't say that with the same confidence that eating foods like that's going to take away your depression, right? Because depression is arguably more, well, almost definitely is more complicated. So these things vary on complexity. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. But kind of like circling back on that, I had the holistic psychologist, and she was actually, I was very surprised also when she said that because it's lack of vitamin D, lack of certain nutritional deficiencies, and how important it is to to the microbiome. Excuse me, it's linked to many not mental disorders, like
exactly. There's a strong connection between the gut bacteria and even anxiety. I wrote an article on anxiety and nutrition, and there's a lot of evidence that there's something there in terms of healthy gut bacteria and reduction in anxiety symptoms. Obviously, this gut-brain connection gets played up, but that's the real life consequence of it. If gut health is not on point, it's going to you may be more susceptible to mental health concerns. Doesn't mean a probiotic is going to fix depression, right? But again, there's something there.
No, and it's it never hurts, if you start with your diet, and that's how they all usually start. Thank you for answering that. Now we're going to move on to the next question. Let's talk about the latest on intermittent fasting, what we know, what we don't, and who potentially shouldn't intermittent fast based on maybe their conditions or what you know about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so intermittent fasting, that's a large topic for sure. I mean, so look, okay, let's see if we can break it down. I mean, I've written a book on it. I've written multiple posts on it. But even with all of that, it's like it's interesting, because I think how I look at fasting is there's two components. There's the physiological component, which we're learning about. Right. So what I mean by that is, what is this theoretical effect we get on our metabolism and our physiology when we fast? And what is the actual meaningful output of that? Like, we don't know this for sure. Like, there's studies and there's something there. Yes, it could help with reducing A1C, you know what I mean? Insulin sensitivity, things like that. Yes, it could change the way our body works with energy. Yes, it could change gene expression, but we don't know what the actual implications of that are. We just don't know yet. It's like, I'm sure there's people on the internet who will claim strongly that fasting is this. I don't think we have the evidence to make strong claims. I think we can say there's something there and fasting has some effects, but are these effects enough that we should widely recommend it for everyone? That's questionable, right? And you can debate that, right?
Yeah.
But what's more interesting to me is the practical side of fasting, which is like, for some people, does the idea of, eating in a shortened window of time just work for your life? Does it allow you to spend more energy on your decisions when you do eat? Does it just fit your lifestyle? Does it make you happier? If it does, cool. Then who cares about the rest? It already, but I don't believe that for someone who it doesn't work for, who doesn't like it, then they should bend over backwards to do it just for these theoretical physiological benefits. This is my stance on it. So I don't think you need to turn your life upside down to fast because some blogger told you it's the best thing, right?
Yeah.
This is my view. And now I've written a lot on fasting. So this is me saying it as someone who is interested in it, who sees that there's something there. But there's a dark side to it too. I mean, it can certainly quickly become restrictive. You know what I mean? People who need a lot of energy intake or who are, need a lot of nutrient intake, they need to be very careful if they play games with fasting, especially depending on your personality type. You can go too far, you know what I mean? And so there's dark sides to it as well.
Oh yeah. I think that actually happened to me, anecdotal, but I think I was doing it wrong. I was working out. Once I was given the green light to work out because I had a herniated disc, I started just going to the gym like 5 times a week. Right. I was so pumped because I like it. And I was also doing intermittent fasting. I think I was doing it for too long. And Jade Tata, I don't know if you're familiar with him, was talking about how it didn't work out. It didn't work for him either, at least for that period, because I read his newsletters, and I was like, oh my God, maybe that's what happened to me. I damaged my metabolism a couple of years ago because of that, and I'm still now recovering. And I couldn't understand. I'm like, I'm doing intermittent fasting, I'm keto-ish, and at first,
and the best, and this is what it tells me. So what I know from what I've seen from population studies, now it's very hard, now let's actually do a quick caveat. If you go to the American Institute of Cancer Research, right, you look at what they claim helps prevent cancer, they're very careful. They don't put a lot of foods in the likely category because it's very hard to make conclusions about what someone eats about their whole life cycle and how that affects their risk of certain things, especially with something complicated like cancer. Now, that being said, studies I've seen, people who eat more soy rather than less tend to have a lower risk of cancer, lower risk of breast cancer, despite people thinking